I was 25 when my 60-year-old dad was wheeled into the hospital for what would be his final stay. I had always been close to him, but our relationship was complicated. Growing up, I felt like I was living in the shadow of my older brother, Alex, who was 28 and always seemed to be the favorite. And as I sat by my dad's bedside, holding his frail hand, I could see the exhaustion and pain etched on his face. My mom, 58, was sitting on the other side of the bed, trying to comfort him. I knew this might be my last chance to ask him all the questions I had. And Dad, I need to ask you something, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Why did you and Mom always seem to favor Alex over me? I felt like I was never good enough for you. And my dad looked at me with a mix of sadness and guilt. He took a deep breath and said, I'm sorry, kiddo. It's not that we didn't love you. It's just, Alex isn't your biological brother. And he felt like I had been punched in the gut. What do you mean? I asked, trying to process this revelation. And my dad explained that when my mom was pregnant with me, he had an affair with a woman named Sarah, 32 at the time. She became pregnant with Alex, and my dad, feeling guilty and responsible, decided to raise Alex as his own. He told my mom that Alex was her nephew, and she agreed to help him keep the secret. And he couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had always thought Alex was my brother, and now I was learning that he was actually my half-brother. I felt like my whole life had been a lie. And why didn't you ever tell me? I asked, trying to keep my anger in check. And my dad looked down, ashamed. I was afraid of losing your mom and you. I didn't want to hurt anyone. And as I sat there, trying to process this revelation, I realized that I had to confront Alex. I couldn't just keep this secret to myself. I called him and asked him to come to the hospital. And when Alex arrived, I told him everything. At first, he was in denial, but eventually, he broke down and apologized for not knowing the truth. I forgave him, but I couldn't forgive my dad. And as my dad's condition worsened, I held his hand and said, I'm glad I know the truth, but I'm not sure if I'm glad you told me now. And my dad smiled weakly and said, I'm sorry, kiddo. I hope you can forgive me someday. And he passed away a few hours later, surrounded by my mom and me. I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered family. And was I wrong to confront my dad on his deathbed, or was I justified in seeking the truth?